The day Hermione Granger received her Hogwarts letter was unforgettable. The shrill squeal she let out when the owl landed on their windowsill startled everyone in the house, especially her little sister, Helena. At just 8 years old, Helena Granger had always idolized her sister. Hermione was brilliant, determined, and brave, everything Helena aspired to be. But something in her changed that morning. It wasn't just excitement, it was something else, something deeper. A longing she couldn't name. "Mom, Dad, look at this. I'm going to Hogwarts." Hermione waved the parchment wildly, eyes wide with joy. Mr. and Mrs. Granger were startled, to say the least. Though they knew about the wizarding world now, thanks to a rather awkward visit from Professor McGonagall a week before. Nothing quite prepared them for the moment it all became real. Helena stood in the hallway, watching quietly. No one noticed her slip away. That summer, Hermione dove headfirst into spellbooks, eager to be the best in her class. She practiced pronunciation in her room, recited facts at dinner, and left Helena barely a second of her time. Not out of cruelty, Hermione loved her sister dearly, but the magical world had consumed her. The night before Hermione left for Hogwarts, Helena climbed into her sister's bed like she used to when thunderstorms frightened her. "Will you write to me?" she asked softly. Hermione turned to look at her, brushing a curl from Helena's face. "Every week. I promise." Helena smiled, hugging her tight. She had no idea that the next few years would reshape their relationship forever. The Hogwarts Express roared away, Hermione leaning out the window and waving until the platform disappeared from sight. Helena waved back until the train was just a speck. Mrs. Granger placed a hand on her younger daughter's shoulder, but Helena didn't flinch. "She'll be fine, sweetheart." "I know," Helena whispered. That night, while unpacking Hermione's leftover things, Helena found a tattered book on magical theory Hermione had read obsessively. She picked it up, feeling the rough pages under her fingers. For the first time, she allowed herself to wonder, could she be a witch too? 3 years passed. Hermione's letters came without fail, some short, some long, always detailed. She spoke of trolls, flying lessons, enchanted chessboards, a secret chamber, and a mysterious prisoner. Her stories felt like fiction, yet Helena read every word like scripture. But each time Hermione came home for the holidays, something felt different. She was always happy to see them, but her eyes sparkled most when she talked about Hogwarts, not home. Helena couldn't blame her. Their ordinary world just didn't measure up. Still, Helena waited. Waited for her own Hogwarts letter. Waited for the proof that she too belonged in that world. It didn't come on her 11th birthday. It came a week later, with a tawny owl and a letter addressed to Miss H. Granger. She screamed so loudly that their neighbor nearly called the police. Hermione had just returned home that very day for the summer. When Helena ran to her waving the letter, Hermione looked stunned for a second. Not because she was surprised, but because she hadn't dared to hope it might happen. "You're really going to Hogwarts?" Hermione shouted, pulling her into a hug. "Just like you," Helena grinned. "Maybe not just like me," Hermione said with a smirk. "You're going to make your own way. But if you need help..." "I want help," Helena said quickly. "I want to be ready, just like you were." Hermione hesitated, remembering all the long nights she'd spent reading. But seeing the spark in Helena's eyes, the same spark she once had, made her nod. "Then we'd better get started." That summer was the best of Helena's life. The Granger sisters became inseparable again. They studied together, laughed over wizarding idioms, and Hermione even helped her pick out her wand. 11 inches, willow, unicorn hair, a wand Ollivander said was graceful but resilient. Helena clutched it like a lifeline. When September 1st arrived, both sisters stood side by side on platform 9 3/4. Hermione helped Helena load her trunk onto the train, her prefect's badge gleaming on her chest. Helena looked around nervously. "What if I don't make friends?" "You will." "What if I mess up?" "You won't." "What if I'm not in Gryffindor?" Hermione knelt down slightly so they were eye to eye. "Then I'll still be proud of you." "I promise." Helena nodded. As the train whistle blew, she climbed aboard, heart racing. She watched Hermione until she was gone from view, then found an empty compartment near the middle. She tried to calm herself, her wand trembling slightly in her hand. The ride was long, full of strange candy and even stranger conversations, But Helena found herself chatting with a small, freckled boy named Alec who seemed just as nervous as she was. When they arrived at Hogwarts, the castle looming against the night sky, Helena's breath caught. It was more magnificent than Hermione ever described. As the first years gathered near the boats, Helena took Alec's hand. They crossed the lake in silence. Inside the castle, the Sorting Hat sat upon its stool, grumbling to itself. One by one, names were called. Helena's heartbeat thudded in her ears. Granger, Helena. She stepped forward, legs stiff, and the hat was placed on her head. Ah, another Granger, the hat said thoughtfully. Bright, very bright. Ambitious, yes, but kind, oh, so loyal. A clever mind, like your sister's, but a different kind of strength. Not Gryffindor. No, I see something else in you. Helena swallowed hard. It must be Hufflepuff. The table burst into cheers. Helena's legs carried her to them on autopilot. She sat down, dazed, unsure what this meant. Across the room, Hermione stared, stunned, then slowly began to clap, a proud smile forming on her face. Helena wasn't sure what lay ahead, but she knew one thing for certain. This was her beginning. Not as Hermione's shadow, but as Helena Granger. The Hufflepuff common room was warm and welcoming, nestled near the kitchens and filled with golden light and earthy tones. As Helena stepped inside for the first time, she felt a soft pull in her chest, as though the room itself was exhaling in relief at her presence. The fireplace flickered gently, casting shadows that danced across the stone walls. A short, round-faced girl with curly brown hair approached her, holding out a hand. Hi, I'm Molly Cartwright, second year. You're Helena Granger, right? Helena nodded, a little overwhelmed but grateful for the friendly face. Yeah, that's me. You're Hermione's sister, aren't you? Molly's eyes sparkled. She's amazing. Top of every class. Everyone talks about her. Helena's stomach twisted, not with jealousy, but something close. Yeah, she's great. Molly smiled. Don't worry. You'll be amazing too. Come on, I'll show you to your bed. That night, Helena lay awake in the cozy dormitory, listening to the gentle snores of the other girls. The Sorting Hat's words echoed in her mind. A different kind of strength. She wanted to believe that. She really did. Classes began the next morning. Helena found herself sandwiched between curiosity and nerves as she walked to Transfiguration with Alec. Professor McGonagall was stern but fair, and Helena quickly realized that magic required precision and patience, two things she had in abundance. Still, it was hard not to feel like she was always being measured against her sister's legacy. When Professor Flitwick took attendance in Charms, he paused at her name and gave a pleased nod. Ah, another Granger. Excellent. Let's see if brilliance runs in the family. Helena smiled politely, but inwardly she sighed. Let's see if brilliance runs in the family felt more like a challenge than a compliment. During lunch in the Great Hall, she spotted Hermione across the room, deep in conversation with Harry Potter and Ron Weasley. They were laughing about something, their plates half-eaten and filled with treacle tart. Hermione looked relaxed, like she belonged. Helena wondered if she'd ever feel that way here. But then Alec elbowed her gently and whispered, "Did you see that portrait move on the third floor?" It winked at me. Helena giggled, then turned her attention back to her meal. Maybe belonging didn't have to be instant. Maybe it could come in quiet moments like these. By the end of her first week, Helena had already learned a dozen spells and charmed half her textbooks to float back into her bag when class ended. Her wand, light and flexible, responded eagerly to her intentions, especially in charms and herbology. Professor Sprout took a liking to her immediately. "You've got good instincts," she said during a lesson on mandrake seedlings. "Just like a true Hufflepuff. Gentle but firm." Helena beamed. It felt nice to be noticed for her strengths, not her sister's. But not everyone was so supportive. During a shared potions class with Slytherin, Helena found herself seated next to a tall, sneering boy named Travis Knott. "So, the famous Granger's little sister," he drawled. "Tell me, are you going to be as insufferable as she is, or do you actually know your place?" Helena's face flushed hot. She clenched her jaw and said nothing. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. But the encounter stayed with her. After class, she stomped outside and found herself on the path toward the lake, fury simmering beneath her skin. She sat down on a rock, watching the squid ripple lazily beneath the surface. Footsteps approached. "You okay?" It was Alec, clutching a bottle of pumpkin juice. "Just needed air," she muttered. He sat beside her. "Not giving you trouble?" Helena glanced at him. He called Hermione insufferable, and then basically called me her shadow. Alec frowned. "You're not her shadow." "Sometimes it feels like I am," Helena said quietly. "Every teacher, every student, they see her when they see me. No one expects me to be different." "But you are different," Alec said. "You're you. You listen before you speak. You're careful, thoughtful. You didn't jump into that firecracker frog jar the first night like I did." Helena laughed. "You mean the jar that exploded purple goo all over your robes?" "Exactly. Hermione might be a genius, but you're brilliant too. Just in your own way." Helena didn't know what to say. For the first time since arriving, she felt seen. Later that week, after an unusually intense defense against the dark arts lesson, where Professor Lupin showed them how to repel a boggart, Helena found herself face to face with a tall figure cloaked in shadows, whispering her name. The boggart twisted into an empty Hogwarts letter, its parchment turning to ash in her hands. When she cast ridiculous, the letter turned into a bouncing sugar quill, which promptly exploded in a shower of glitter. The class laughed and clapped, and Lupin gave her a nod of approval. "Well done, Miss Granger." But when she looked up at Hermione, who had quietly entered the classroom early for her own class, her sister was watching her with an unreadable expression. Later that evening, Hermione pulled her aside in the corridor. "You didn't tell me your boggart was that," she said gently. Helena looked down. "I didn't know until I saw it." "Fear of not belonging?" Helena nodded. Hermione reached out and touched her arm. "I know you don't always feel like you fit in my shadow. But you need to know something, Helena. I've never wanted you to be like me. I want you to be better." Helena's eyes filled with tears. "You mean that?" "Every word." They stood in silence for a moment before Hermione smiled. "Besides, I heard you got top marks in charms this week." Helena grinned through her tears. "Second top." Hermione laughed. "Well then, I'd better catch up." By the end of the first month, Helena was no longer just Hermione's sister. She was Helena Granger, top in charms, a rising star in herbology, and a steady friend who others turned to for calm advice. Even Professor McGonagall had taken to addressing her without the pause. And though the path was still uncertain, she was beginning to carve her place in the magical world. Not by following in her sister's footsteps, but by walking just beside them. The leaves turned golden across the Hogwarts grounds, blanketing the earth in crisp colors as October settled in. Autumn was Helena's favorite season already, not because of Halloween or the trick sweets Alex smuggled from Zonko's, but because it brought with it a quiet magic of its own. She loved the crunch beneath her boots, the distant smoke from Hagrid's chimney, and the way the castle always seemed to glow warmer against the chill. But Hogwarts was never just about comfort. Magic, as Professor Lupin had said in his very first lesson, always came with a cost, and sometimes with danger. The whispers had started just after the first Hogsmeade weekend. "They say Sirius Black's been sighted again. Near the forest." "No, someone saw a black dog up by the divination tower." Helena listened quietly to the gossip swirling in the corridors. She didn't know all the details, only that Sirius Black had escaped Azkaban, a wizarding prison with a reputation so fearsome even first years had heard of it. Hermione had explained it over dinner once, her voice low and serious. "He was close to Harry's family," she had said. "Betrayed them to you-know-who. He's dangerous, Helena. Stay close to the castle." Helena nodded, but her mind lingered on something else, the way Harry's jaw tightened whenever Black's name came up. There was more to the story, clearly. She didn't ask. Some grief was best left untouched. Still, when a Hufflepuff third year claimed he saw something dark lurking outside Greenhouse 5, Helena's attention snapped into focus. "Could have been a shadow," he mumbled, brushing it off. But it moved strange. Fast. Helena didn't say anything aloud, but the feeling stuck with her like frost in her chest. Back in the common room that night, Alec was attempting to enchant his quill to write his history of magic essay for him. It ended with the quill attacking him and smearing ink across his face. "Remind me never to trust shortcuts," he groaned, flopping onto the rug. Helena laughed and tossed him a towel. You could just write it yourself, you know. I could, he said, eyes narrowing. Or I could recruit the smartest Hufflepuff in our year to help me. You're trying to flatter me into doing your homework? Did it work? No. He smirked and sat up, rubbing the ink from his cheek. You've changed, you know, since the start of term. Helena blinked. Changed how? You used to be nervous all the time. Now you walk into class like you own the room. She shrugged. I guess I'm starting to feel like I belong. Alex smiled. Good. Because you do. October 31st arrived in a flurry of excitement. The great hall had been transformed into a spectacle of floating pumpkins, glowing candles, and dancing shadows. Bats flapped lazily beneath the ceiling charm, and even the suits of armor in the corridor wore party hats. But the celebration ended in a shock that would ripple through every corner of the castle. That night, during the feast, Headmaster Dumbledore stood slowly at the front of the hall. The buzz died instantly. He raised a hand. There has been an incident. The word froze Helena's blood. This evening, Sirius Black was sighted inside the castle. Gasps echoed across the hall. Helena's eyes darted to Hermione, who was already on her feet, scanning the crowd. No students were harmed, Dumbledore continued, but all houses will return to their dormitories immediately. Prefects, lead your houses. The castle is now under heightened security. No exceptions. As the students filed out, Helena's thoughts raced. He got in. Through all the enchantments. Through all the protection. Later, as they huddled in the Hufflepuff common room, students murmured about how he must have done it. Some blamed Peeves. Others said he turned into a shadow or walked through walls. No one knew the truth, and that made it worse. Helena sat near the fireplace, legs curled beneath her, her mind swirling with worry. You all right? Alec asked softly. I don't know, she said. Hermione's friends. Harry, they're at the center of this, aren't they? He nodded. Yeah, and so is she. Helena exhaled. For the first time, she realized that being part of the magical world meant facing real darkness. Not just difficult spells or rude classmates, but danger, secrets, pain. She lay awake that night long after curfew, listening to the wind rattle the windows. She couldn't shake the image of a man in black slipping through the castle halls like smoke. A few days later, Helena received a note from Hermione asking her to meet by the courtyard during free period. When she arrived, Hermione was pacing, face pale. I don't have long, Hermione said quickly. But I wanted to warn you. Harry's not doing well. He keeps hearing things, voices. Dumbledore thinks it might be connected to Dementors. Those things at the Quidditch pitch? Helena whispered. The ones that make everything cold? Hermione nodded grimly. They feed on fear. On pain. Harry's affected more than anyone else. Helena swallowed hard. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to be careful. If Black is after Harry, he'll try again. And if he gets inside the castle, I want you to be ready. Helena nodded. I will be. Hermione searched her eyes, then gave her a quick hug before slipping back toward the library. Helena stood still for a long moment, her thoughts heavy. She was only a first year, but she could feel it, the shift in the air, the weight of things to come. And somewhere deep inside her, a new fire was starting to spark. She wasn't just here to study spells and make friends. She was here to learn how to stand, how to protect the ones she loved. Because danger was real, and it had already found its way in. November rolled into Hogwarts with a creeping cold that clung to the stones like a warning. Helena wrapped her scarf tighter as she crossed the courtyard, the wind biting at her fingers. Something had shifted since Halloween. An unease settled across the castle like a fog no spell could lift. Students whispered in corridors, and even Peeves was quieter than usual. The portraits watched more carefully. The staircases seemed to creak more often. Even Hufflepuff's cozy common room, usually immune to tension, had gone quieter. The younger students huddled in groups now, glancing at the doors whenever they opened. The seventh years practiced defensive spells during free periods. Helena watched them often, absorbing everything she could. She'd started borrowing extra books from the library. Not just classwork, books about magical theory, defensive enchantments, protective wards. Flitwick had noticed and gave her a rare smile during charms. You've got a sharp mind, Miss Granger, he said. Don't let fear drive your curiosity. Let it shape your wisdom. She nodded, grateful. He reminded her a little of her mum. Alec had grown more serious, too. He'd stopped trying to enchant his quills into writing for him. Not because he no longer wanted to, but because Helena had started tutoring him in the evenings. Their friendship had settled into a quiet, strong rhythm. She didn't know when it had shifted, only that she now trusted him like a brother. One night, while they studied in a quiet corner of the common room, Alec looked up suddenly. "Do you think Black was really inside the common rooms?" he asked. She paused, then slowly shook her head. "No, I don't think he got that far." "Why not?" "Because the fat lady was attacked outside the Gryffindor common room. He didn't get in there either. And I don't think he'd waste time trying to get into ours." Alec frowned. So then where was he going? Helena bit her lip. "Where do you go when you want to avoid attention? When you know the castle well?" They both said it at once. The third floor. The thought lingered. The following Saturday, Helena found herself walking alone through a lesser-used corridor near the defense against the dark arts classroom. It was quiet, too quiet, and her footsteps echoed on the stone floor. She paused by a tapestry of a wizard teaching trolls ballet. She'd passed it before, but this time something tugged at her gut. The air felt wrong. A chill ran up her spine. She turned slowly. The hallway was empty, or so she thought. A flicker of movement, just at the edge of her vision, caught her breath. She spun back. Nothing. Her wand was out before she realized she'd even drawn it. "Lumos," she whispered. Light blossomed at the tip. The corridor remained still. And then a sound. Not footsteps, but a shuffle. A breath. "Who's there?" she said, voice trembling but clear. Silence. Then, from the shadowed archway just ahead, a shape emerged, small, hunched, and muttering to itself. Not Black. A house elf. Helena blinked, lowering her wand just slightly. "You're not supposed to be up here," she said gently. The elf looked up, wide-eyed and frantic. "Miss must not be here either. No, no, no. Dangerous things, terrible things. Miss must go back." "What do you mean?" she asked. "What things?" But the elf darted past her before she could stop it, vanishing down a side corridor with a pop of disapparition. Helena stood frozen. Her heart pounded in her chest. She was certain of it now. Something more than Sirius Black was happening at Hogwarts. That night, Helena wrote it all down in her journal. Every detail. The corridor, the tapestry, the elf's words. She tucked it under her mattress before sleep. And she dreamt of shadows slipping beneath doors and voices that whispered her name. The next morning, she found a note slipped into her transfiguration book. No name. Just a sentence. "Stay out of the north wing after curfew." Her blood ran cold. She scanned the great hall, but no one looked her way. Alec was halfway through a cinnamon roll, oblivious. She tucked the note away, her mind racing. Was it a warning? A threat? A test? She didn't tell Hermione. Not yet. That evening, as curfew approached, Helena paced the edge of the Hufflepuff common room. The fireplace crackled, and students whispered about the upcoming Quidditch match. But Helena wasn't thinking about Quidditch. She was thinking about the North Wing, and about the decision she was about to make. She slipped out with a whisper of muffliato to blur the sound of her steps. Her heart thundered in her ears. The castle at night was a different place, alive and ancient, with creaks and whispers that belonged to no living soul. She passed empty classrooms, flickering torches, and ghostly echoes. The portraits watched her silently, some murmuring warnings she didn't understand. When she reached the edge of the north wing, she hesitated. Something was waiting. She could feel it. And then a sound. A door closing. She pressed herself to the wall, barely breathing. Another sound, quieter this time. Movement. Words she couldn't make out. Helena crept closer, her wand trembling in her grip. A faint blue light flickered beneath the door ahead. She edged toward it, heart hammering. Inside, two voices. A low male one. And another, smoother, colder. "The girl's getting too curious." "She's only a first year," the cold voice snapped. "She won't be a problem. Not if we move soon." Helena's breath caught. She took a step back, and her shoe scuffed the stone. The voices inside went silent. The door creaked open. Helena turned and ran. She didn't look back. Not until she was safe, heart racing, behind the portrait leading to the Hufflepuff dormitories. That night, she didn't sleep. She just stared at the ceiling, the voices still echoing in her ears. Someone in the castle was planning something. And now, they knew she was listening. The next morning, Helena woke to a strange calmness, the kind that cloaked itself in routine and tried to pretend nothing had happened. But she knew better. Her hands still trembled slightly when she buttoned her robes. Her mind replayed the night over and over. The voices, the flicker of blue light, the phrase, the girl's getting too curious. That girl was her. And now someone inside Hogwarts knew it. Helena thought about telling Professor Sprout. Or Hermione. But the words never came. Every time she tried to form a sentence, her memory conjured the cold voice behind that door, speaking like he already had eyes everywhere. What if someone was listening? So instead, she acted normal. At breakfast, she stirred her porridge and asked Alec about his latest Care of Magical Creatures assignment. She even laughed when he dramatically mimicked a hippogriff's bow. But Hermione saw through it. "You're tense," she said quietly, catching Helena's wrist before she could leave the table. "I'm fine," Helena said quickly. "Just tired." Hermione didn't let go. "You're a bad liar." Helena hesitated. "It's not safe to talk here." Hermione studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Tonight. Library. Restricted section entrance. After curfew." Helena agreed without thinking. The hours crawled until nightfall. Classes blurred. Even Flitwick's usual charm for dancing teacups didn't shake Helena's nerves. She kept her head down, eyes alert. At one point, she thought she saw someone watching her near the fourth-floor corridor, a tall figure in shadows, but when she turned, no one was there. She didn't tell Alec where she was going. She didn't want him involved, not yet. If something happened to him. At exactly 11, Helena crept out of the Hufflepuff dormitory, wand hidden up her sleeve. She took the long route, careful to avoid Filch and Mrs. Norris, who had grown particularly fond of lurking near the Ravenclaw Tower lately. She reached the library and slipped through the shadows to the back shelves where Hermione was waiting. Hermione raised an eyebrow. "You brought a cloak." Helena nodded and pulled it tighter. "It makes me feel braver." "Smart," Hermione said approvingly. Then her tone shifted. "Tell me everything." Helena did. The note, the corridor, the house elf, the blue light, the voices. She laid it all out in a hurried whisper, trying to remember every word. Hermione listened without interruption, eyes narrowing with every sentence. When Helena finished, the silence hung between them like fog. "I believe you," Hermione said finally. "You do?" "Yes. And more importantly, I think you've stumbled onto something you weren't meant to." Hermione stood, pulling a tattered book from a side shelf, one Helena hadn't even noticed before. It had no title, just a scuffed spine. "I've been looking into Sirius Black and his escape," Hermione said. "There are inconsistencies in the records. The Ministry claims he broke out alone, using sheer willpower. But that doesn't explain why the Aurors haven't caught him, or how he could breach Hogwarts wards." Helena's eyes widened. "You think someone's helping him?" "I think someone's using his escape to cover something else," Hermione whispered. "And I think that something is already inside the castle." Helena's skin prickled. "The voices I heard, one of them sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it." Hermione flipped the book open and showed Helena a list of spells: advanced magical concealments, identity masking, memory shielding. "Someone powerful," Hermione said. "Someone who doesn't want to be seen or remembered." "But why mention me?" Helena asked. "Why am I suddenly involved?" "Because you're observant," Hermione said. "And brave. You're asking the right questions." Helena looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if I'm not brave enough?" Hermione's eyes softened. "You're braver than you think. You just haven't had to prove it until now." The next day, life at Hogwarts returned to its illusion of normalcy: classes, laughter, Quidditch tryouts. But Helena felt like she was walking through a dream layered over something darker. She began noticing things others didn't. The way a particular Slytherin boy lingered too long outside Professor Snape's office. The way a corridor near the Ollery was always strangely empty. How one suit of armor in the astronomy tower seemed to face a different direction each day. And then there was the journal. One evening, Helena returned to her dorm to find her mattress disturbed, ever so slightly. She checked beneath it. Her journal was gone. Her blood ran cold. She tore apart her bed, her trunk, even the drawer where she kept her spare quills. Nothing. She ran to the common room, breath tight in her chest. Alec found her pacing. "What's wrong?" She shook her head. "Nothing. I lost something." He frowned. "You sure?" "Yes," she said too quickly. It wasn't important. But it was. Someone had stolen it. Someone who now had all her thoughts, all her notes, everything she'd learned. That night, she found another note in her book bag. This one wasn't written on parchment, but carved into the inside flap with something sharp. "Stay out of this, little Granger." Her heart thundered. The next day brought a new twist. During breakfast, Dumbledore stood again, requesting quiet. The entire hall fell silent. "We will be receiving a visitor for a short period," he said, eyes twinkling, but his voice was heavy. "A highly respected Auror who will be assisting in the investigation regarding recent events." He didn't say Black's name. Then the doors opened. The man who walked in was tall, cloaked in forest green, with sharp eyes and a hawk-like expression. His boots clicked loudly on the stone floor. "Please welcome Auror Cain Rattle," Dumbledore said. Helena's stomach dropped. She recognized that voice. It was the one she had heard behind the door. Cold, smooth, and dangerous. And now, it was here, walking through the great hall like it belonged. Cain Rattle's arrival electrified the castle in all the wrong ways. Whispers followed him like storm clouds. Some students said he'd once hexed a Death Eater so badly their own wand turned against them. Others claimed he had been part of the secret department within the ministry, the kind of department that erased mistakes rather than fixed them. To Helena, none of it mattered. She knew what she'd heard. This man, now standing at Dumbledore's side, had spoken about her in that cold, measured voice. And now he was here. "Raoul will be assisting staff in fortifying the castle's defenses," Dumbledore announced, his expression unreadable. "He may ask questions. He may observe classes. Treat him with respect, and continue your studies as usual." Helena's spoon clattered against her bowl. Alec nudged her. "You all right?" "Just surprised," she muttered. He gave her a sideways glance, but didn't press. The days that followed passed under a tense, watchful sky. Students walked in clusters. Teachers grew sharper. And Raoul, he was everywhere. Watching. Listening. Asking innocent questions in uncomfortably quiet tones. He visited the common rooms, sat in on defense against the dark arts lessons, and once, Helena even caught him speaking with Snape in a private alcove near the potions classroom. She ducked behind a suit of armor and strained to hear. "Not just the black problem," Raoul was saying. "It's something else. A student, too clever for her age. She's been asking questions." Snape replied in his usual drawl. "Then let her. If she becomes a problem, we'll deal with it." Helena backed away before they could sense her. Snape knew. They all knew. Helena didn't tell Hermione everything right away. Not yet. She needed more. So she did what Hermione would have done. She investigated. At night, under the cloak of darkness and a borrowed disillusionment charm, Helena moved through the castle like a ghost. She mapped out patrol routes, learned which doors creaked and which didn't, found hidden stairwells that hadn't been used in decades. And then, one evening near midnight, she spotted him. Raoul, not in his aura robes, but in a black traveling cloak, stepping silently into the third-floor corridor near the tapestry she'd seen before. The one where she'd encountered the house elf. She followed, heart pounding. He passed through the arch and whispered something to the wall. A door appeared. Not a normal door. This one shimmered like heat-off stone, then solidified with a click. He stepped through. Helena waited 10 seconds. Then followed. Inside, the air was thick with magic, old, heavy, and dangerous. The room was round, windowless, lit by floating blue flames. Shelves lined the walls, filled with scrolls, books bound in dragonhide, vials of black and silver liquid. At the center stood a mirror. Tall, framed in gold, covered in runes. The mirror of Eriste. But its surface shimmered oddly, not reflective but rippling. Raoul approached it. He didn't speak. He just stared. The mirror shimmered again. And this time Helena saw something. For just a second, the surface revealed not a desire, but a memory. A shadowy figure stood beside Raoul. A hooded shape. Then another appeared, a student. No face. Just a silhouette. Small. Her. Raoul muttered something under his breath, and the image faded. Helena stepped back, and her foot hit a stone. Click. Raoul spun around. "Who's there?" he barked. Helena bolted. The door hadn't disappeared behind her. Luck or magic, she didn't know. She sprinted back down the corridor, turned sharply, and vanished behind a tapestry. Footsteps followed. Heavy. Controlled. Then silence. She didn't breathe until she reached the Hufflepuff common room. She collapsed into her bed, gasping, heart still trying to escape her chest. The next day, Helena went to the library straight after Transfiguration. She found Hermione in the far corner, researching rune structure. "I need to show you something," Helena said breathlessly. Hermione looked up, brow furrowing. "What happened?" "I followed Raoul last night." Hermione stood, instantly alert. "Are you insane?" "I had to." He was in the third-floor corridor. He opened a hidden room. It had the mirror of erased Hermione, but it wasn't showing desires. It was showing something else. Memories, maybe. Predictions. Hermione's lips parted slightly. The mirror was moved last year. Dumbledore had it hidden. Well, he didn't hide it well enough. Hermione leaned closer. "What did you see?" "Me. Or someone who looked like me. Standing with him. And someone else. A hooded figure." Hermione went pale. "That's not what the mirror is supposed to do." "I know." Hermione exhaled slowly. "This is worse than I thought." Helena's voice trembled. "He's watching me. He took my journal." Hermione's eyes turned flinty. "Then we need to make sure he can't find out what else you know." She dug through her satchel and pulled out an old, battered pouch. "This is enchanted. Put anything you don't want found in here. Only you can open it." Helena took it reverently. "Thank you." Hermione nodded. "We need more eyes. More help. I'll speak with Harry and Ron." "No," Helena said quickly. "Don't tell them yet. I need time. Let me keep digging." Hermione hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but if anything else happens, I'll tell you immediately." Hermione sighed. "Just be careful, Helena." "I will." But deep down, Helena wasn't sure she could be careful anymore. She was already in too deep. And she wasn't the only one. That night, as she returned to her dormitory, a small piece of parchment fluttered out from under her pillow. This one wasn't threatening. It was a question. "Do you want to know what he's really doing here?" There was no signature. Only an instruction. "The astronomy tower. Midnight. Come alone." The wind howled around the turrets of Hogwarts as Helena stood at the base of the astronomy tower, heart hammering in her chest. Her wand felt heavy in her pocket. Midnight was only moments away, and the castle had fallen into its familiar silence, the kind that pressed against the walls like a held breath. She had considered not going. Hermione would have told her it was a trap. And maybe it was. But curiosity clawed at her stronger than fear. Whoever left the note knew something. Something she needed. At the last chime of the clock, Helena pushed open the narrow tower door and stepped into the cool night air. The tower was empty, or appeared to be. Moonlight spilled across the stones in silver ribbons, and stars scattered the sky above like shattered glass. For a long moment, Helena stood in the stillness, unsure. Then a whisper. "Behind you." She spun around, wand out, but no spell came. A figure stepped from the shadows, a girl, maybe 15, with dark, curly hair and sharp eyes that flickered like candlelight. She wore no robes, just a plain black coat and a deep blue scarf. "Who are you?" Helena demanded. "I'm someone who's seen what Raoul's capable of," the girl said softly. "And I think you have too." Helena hesitated. "You left the note." The girl nodded. "I've been following him for weeks." "Are you a student?" A faint smirk. In a manner of speaking. Helena frowned. "That doesn't answer the question." "No," the girl said simply. "Not anymore." Helena lowered her wand slightly. "Then what do you want from me?" "You're asking the right questions," the girl said. "And that means you're in danger. But it also means you might be able to help stop what's coming." "What is coming?" The girl stepped to the edge of the tower and looked out across the dark grounds. "Raoul's not just here for Sirius Black. That's the story. But the truth is, he's been working with a group inside the Ministry, a rogue element. Not Death Eaters. Worse." Helena's breath caught. "Worse how?" "They don't want power. They want control. Total control. Of magic. Of Hogwarts. Of who gets to use it and how." Helena's skin chilled. "Why Hogwarts?" "Because it's old," the girl said. older than anyone understands. It holds secrets buried even Dumbledore hasn't uncovered. Raoul is looking for one of them. What kind of secret? The girl finally turned to face her fully. A spell. A lost enchantment. Ancient magic woven into the very stones of the castle. The kind of magic that can rewrite things. Rewrite what? History. Memory. People. Helena stepped back. That's not possible. It is. And Raoul's getting closer. That's why he's watching you. Helena narrowed her eyes. Why me? The girl's expression softened. Because he thinks you've inherited something. Helena blinked. Inherited? From her. From Hermione. Helena's mind reeled. But she's just my sister. She's more than that, the girl said. You both are. Magic runs in blood, but not just in power. In patterns. Instinct. Some families carry tethers to deeper magic. You're one of them. Helena's hands trembled. This is too much. I know. The girl reached into her coat and pulled out a folded piece of parchment. She handed it to Helena. This will lead you to what Raoul is really after. But you have to promise me something. Helena stared at the parchment. What? Don't tell anyone yet. Not Hermione. Not Dumbledore. They're already being watched. And you're not. The girl gave a ghost of a smile. I'm used to it. She turned to leave, but Helena called out. Wait. What's your name? The girl hesitated. Call me Nova. Then she vanished into the shadows. Back in the Hufflepuff dormitory, Helena sat on her bed, the parchment in her lap. She hadn't opened it yet. Her mind spun with Nova's words. A spell that rewrites people. A power older than Hogwarts itself. And she, Helena Granger, was somehow connected to it. She didn't sleep. She didn't even try. At dawn, she opened the parchment. Inside was a simple map. Hand-drawn. It showed the castle from an unusual angle, almost like a blueprint. But the most curious thing was a marked X deep below the dungeons, beneath a spiral-shaped chamber labeled the Foundation. Helena didn't recognize it. No one had ever spoken of such a place. She ran her finger across the lines. There was a note scrawled at the bottom in looping script. The stone remembers. The blood reveals. Speak only truth or be unmade. Her stomach twisted. Suddenly a knock. She shoved the parchment under her pillow just as Alec peeked in. You didn't come to breakfast. Wasn't hungry, she said quickly. You're lying again. She looked up, exhausted. Alec, what if I told you something that sounded impossible? He sat beside her, serious now. I'd probably believe it. She hesitated, then handed him a blank piece of parchment. Not the parchment. Just something. Then let's say I'm chasing a mystery. A dangerous one. And I don't know who I can trust. Alec met her eyes. You can trust me. She wanted to. Oh, she wanted to. But she couldn't risk it, not yet. Instead, she reached into her satchel and pulled out her enchanted pouch, tucking the true parchment inside. I know. I just need time. Alec nodded, not pressing. As he left, Helena whispered under her breath. Nova, what are you really not telling me? She had no answers. Only a map, a warning, and a truth she hadn't yet discovered. But one thing was certain now. Cain Rattle wasn't hunting a fugitive. He was hunting her. Helena spent the next day in a haze, her mind flickering between classes and the parchment hidden in her pouch. Every time she looked at a stone wall or passed beneath a corridor arch, she wondered. Was this built on the magic Nova spoke of? Was Hogwarts hiding something even Professor Binns didn't know? In Charm's class, she nearly set her desk on fire mispronouncing incendio. In herbology, she snipped a chunk out of her glove instead of the devil's snare root. Hermione noticed. Helena, she said sharply during dinner, you've been twitching like a pygmy puff on tea leaves. What's going on? Helena poked her mashed potatoes, stalling. Just tired. Not good enough. Helena met her sister's gaze and nearly cracked. But the words from Nova burned like embers in her ears. Don't tell anyone yet. Not even Hermione. I'll be fine, she murmured. Promise. Hermione frowned but didn't push further. Helena finished her meal quickly and slipped out early, darting past the library and down the cold stone steps that led to the dungeons. She took a winding route, pretending she was simply heading toward the potions corridor, just in case someone was watching. She gripped the enchanted pouch, drew out the parchment, and studied the map again. The X sat beneath a spiral chamber, labeled the Foundation. That chamber was below the potions classroom, far below. She crept toward the end of the corridor, where a rusted suit of armor leaned against the wall. According to the map, this was the entrance. She tapped the wall with her wand and whispered, "Foundation." Nothing happened. She tried again. Still nothing. Frustrated, she pressed her palm against the stones. And that's when the wall moved. It shuddered like something waking from slumber, and a ripple ran across the surface. The stones melted away, revealing a curved staircase that plunged into darkness. Cold air rushed out, sharp and metallic, like blood and ink. Helena hesitated. Then she stepped in. The wall sealed shut behind her. She lit her wand. Lumos. The spiral staircase coiled downward far longer than any part of the castle should have. It was as though she were descending through time itself. The walls were lined with carvings, not modern ones, but jagged, ancient symbols that pulsed faintly when her wand light passed. When she reached the bottom, she found a circular chamber, domed, with a floor of black stone and a ceiling of star-like crystals that glowed dimly. In the center stood a raised platform with a single stone pedestal, etched with runes that shimmered gold and green. This was it, the Foundation. She approached slowly. The pedestal had no book, no object. Just a groove in the center, shaped like a handprint. Her heart pounded. She reached forward and placed her hand into the groove. For a moment, nothing. Then the room pulsed. The crystals above flared. The runes ignited. The platform trembled beneath her feet. And then a voice, not loud, not spoken, but in her mind, filled her. "You seek the truth." Her knees buckled. "Yes," she whispered aloud. "Truth requires cost. Memory. Blood. Are you willing?" She hesitated, but only for a second. "Yes." Pain lanced through her palm. She tried to jerk her hand back, but it wouldn't move. It was locked in the stone. The platform glowed brighter as a drop of blood slid from her fingertip into the groove. It hissed as it touched the stone. A circle of light expanded beneath her. Visions exploded behind her eyes. A baby, wrapped in golden cloth, placed into a woman's arms. A sigil, the mark of a forgotten family, burned onto parchment. A young witch, maybe 14, in Hogwarts robes, fleeing through this very chamber, chased by shadows in black. Then a face, her own. No, not her, but so much like her. Then it all went black. When Helena opened her eyes, she was lying on the stone floor. The pedestal was dim now, but a faint golden object rested in the groove. She reached out, fingers trembling, and lifted it. A medallion, old but warm in her hand. On the front was a carved symbol, a circle intersected by 3 points, like a triangle woven with roots. And on the back, a name. Casha Granger. Her throat tightened. She had never heard that name before. But she knew it mattered. Casha. Her ancestor? She slid the medallion into her pouch and stood on unsteady legs. Something had changed. The room felt different now, less oppressive. As if it had recognized her. Accepted her. She made her way back up the staircase, the medallion pulsing softly in her pocket like a heartbeat. When she emerged back into the dungeon corridor, the wall sealed behind her without a sound. Helena barely had time to catch her breath when a voice spoke behind her. "You shouldn't be down here." She spun around, wand raised. Cain Rattle stood at the far end of the corridor, his wand already out, face unreadable. "How long have you been watching me?" Helena demanded. Rattle stepped forward slowly. "Long enough to know you've found something you don't understand." Helena gripped her wand tighter. "And you do." His eyes glinted. "I understand power. And legacy. And how dangerous the two can be when they're not kept in the right hands." He took another step. Helena raised her wand. "Stay back." Rattle smiled, not kindly. "You've made yourself very interesting, Miss Granger. Very interesting indeed." Then, before she could cast, he vanished. Not disapparated. Vanished. Like smoke curling into the air. Helena ran, heart hammering. She didn't stop until she reached the Hufflepuff dormitory and collapsed against her bed. She pulled the medallion out of her pouch and stared at it. Casha Granger. Who was she? And what had she left behind? Outside her window, the wind picked up again. And far below, deep in the foundation of Hogwarts, something ancient stirred. The medallion sat on Helena's nightstand, catching slivers of morning sunlight that filtered through the Hufflepuff windows. She hadn't slept, not really. Her dreams had been a blur of faces and symbols, twisting into the form of the pedestal from the foundation chamber. At one point, she'd sworn she heard a whisper from it in the middle of the night. Casha Granger. The name haunted her now like a thread waiting to be pulled. She didn't tell Hermione. Not yet, but the urge to know more overwhelmed her. If Casha was an ancestor, why had no one ever mentioned her? Why wasn't her name in the family records or wizarding history books? She needed answers. And there was only one place that might hold them. The library. Helena waited until Hermione was busy tutoring a younger Ravenclaw in arithmancy. Then, under the excuse of reviewing herbology notes, she slipped off alone. The library was quiet at midday, the perfect time to go unnoticed. Madame Pants glanced up as Helena passed, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. But Helena offered her most innocent smile and wandered deep into the farthest row of historical family records. She pulled out a large, dusty tome titled Notable Magical Lineages of the Last Millennium and flipped through it feverishly. There were endless pages on the Blacks, Malfoys, and Pruitts. A brief section on the Bones family. Even the Longbottoms had 2 pages. Nothing on Grangers. Helena scowled. That was odd, considering Hermione's fame. Even as Muggleborns, the magical world had acknowledged her role in the war. Unless someone had intentionally erased the name. She pushed the book aside and dug deeper, climbing a wooden ladder to reach the higher shelves of the restricted archive. She didn't have a pass, but she had a steady hand and a pouch full of borrowed invisibility powder from Alec, who had once filched it from Zonko's during a Hogsmeade trip. A quick sprinkle over her head, and she became a ghost in the aisles. She reached the section marked historical artifacts and their bearers, and something tugged at her senses. A ripple, almost like the magic from the foundation room. She followed it. Her fingers brushed along the spines until they landed on a slim, faded red book with a broken spine. Forgotten Heirs, Legacies Lost to Time. She cracked it open, holding her breath. The pages were brittle but intact. It listed families that had disappeared, died out, or had their bloodlines severed due to war, scandal, or silence. And there, on page 67, she found it. A sketch of the medallion. The triangle with roots. Below it, the House of Granger extinct. Lineage of memory. Believed to originate during the founding era, this family once served as wards of the vaults, protectors of ancient magical foundations sealed beneath the earliest parts of Hogwarts. Their name was struck from most records after the Purge of 1342, following the disappearance of Casha Granger, its last known bearer. Helena's pulse pounded. There was more. Casha Granger was said to have bound herself to the foundation through a ritual of memory, preserving a lost enchantment designed to protect magical integrity. The magic, believed to be bound to blood and truth, has never resurfaced. Some believe the medallion to be the key to unlocking it. Others claim it is cursed. Helena ran her thumb over the drawing. It was identical. No doubt. She read on, the next passage chilling her blood. In 1980, an anonymous informant attempted to trace a descendant through Muggle lines, claiming the bloodline had survived in hiding. The trail vanished, until rumors reemerged after the fall of Voldemort that a Granger had returned. Her eyes widened. That was Hermione. But the magic hadn't chosen Hermione. It had chosen her. Helena sat back, the truth unfolding like a blooming flower. She wasn't just Hermione's sister. She was the heir to something buried, something the magical world had tried to forget or feared remembering. A protector of the foundation, just as Casha had been. A sharp crack echoed through the library. She slammed the book shut and pulled the invisibility powder again, dusting herself quickly as footsteps approached. Cain Rattle's voice, low and dangerous, drifted between the shelves. She was here, he said to someone unseen. The medallion called to this section. I can feel the trace. Another voice responded, a woman's. Cold and clipped. We should act soon. Before she unlocks anything else. Raoul's reply was almost amused. Let her. She's doing the hard work for us. Helena's blood froze. She crept backward, step by step, until she reached the end of the aisle and slipped behind a massive globe of the magical world. She watched the two through a gap between bookshelves. The woman with Raoul wore dark gray robes with a silver brooch shaped like an open eye. The same symbol she'd seen on a folder in Raoul's office weeks ago. The ministry? No. Something else. Is the sister involved? The woman asked. Raoul smirked. Hermione Granger? No. She's too clever to dabble in blood magic. This one, though, Helena, she's curious. Dangerous. Like her ancestor. Then we eliminate her. Helena barely kept from gasping. No, Raoul said smoothly. Not yet. Let's see where she leads us first. They moved on, their footsteps fading into silence. Helena waited 5 more minutes before daring to move again. She placed the book back carefully, heart thundering in her chest. As she turned to go, something fluttered out from between the pages and drifted to the floor. A torn fragment of parchment. She picked it up. On it, written in Casha Granger's script. When memory is truth and blood is key, follow the path where voices flee. Her hand closed around it. She had a destination. She had an enemy. And she had a name, a legacy, that could no longer be ignored. As Helena slipped from the library and into the hallways of Hogwarts, her steps were quicker, sharper, more certain. The game had changed, and she was no longer a pawn. Helena kept the fragment of Casha's note hidden inside her sock for 3 straight days, terrified Raoul or the silver brooch woman might discover it. Even in class, she found herself distracted, checking shadows, flinching at whispers, half-hearing Professor Flitwick's instructions. Whatever the path where voices flee meant, she knew it was her next step. But the wrong move could get her expelled, or worse. By the 4th night, the unease became unbearable. She slipped out of bed after curfew, careful not to wake any of the other Hufflepuff girls. The corridors were eerily silent, moonlight streaming in through the tall windows like icy veins across the stone floor. She moved fast, sticking to the edges, heart thudding. She was headed to the one place in Hogwarts where voices didn't just fade, they vanished entirely. The Silent Vault. It wasn't on the map, not in any student guidebook, and certainly never mentioned by teachers. But Helena had heard rumors, passed down from upper-year Hufflepuffs. A chamber where sound was swallowed whole, built to imprison cursed objects too dangerous to destroy. And according to a footnote in Forgotten Heirs, Casha Granger had once served as its final guardian. She descended through a crumbling side stairwell beneath the Great Hall. Her wand light flickered across long-forgotten portraits. Eyes closed, frames cracked, as if the paintings themselves had gone mute. At the bottom, the air changed. Heavier. Still. A curved archway stood before her. Its stones were etched with a simple Latin phrase. Veritas in Silio, truth in silence. She stepped forward. No door barred her path, but the moment she crossed the threshold, the world changed. Her footsteps made no sound. Even her breath disappeared, like it was being swallowed by the very air around her. She tried to speak. Her lips moved, but no sound emerged. The Silent Vault. A long, dim corridor stretched before her, lined with shelves and locked drawers, glass cases and ancient bindings sealed shut with glowing thread. She moved slowly, reading the labels etched in gold script. Mask of the Wordless Wraith. The Withering Quill. Heart of Glass still beating. But it was the case at the very end that called to her. It was completely unmarked. Unlike the others, it had no enchantments, only a thick layer of dust and a faint shimmer in the air around it. She pressed her palm to the glass. Nothing happened. But then, like a whisper inside her mind, a voice returned. Not from outside. From within. Blood answers blood. Her fingers trembled as she reached into her pouch and pulled out the medallion. The moment it touched the glass, the air quivered. The case melted away like fog. Inside was a narrow wooden box, about the length of her forearm. She opened it slowly. Inside lay a wand. But not just any wand. Its core shimmered with pulsing gold, the wood carved with the same tri-root symbol from the medallion. And as she touched it, a jolt of warmth traveled up her arm, familiar but ancient. A connection. Recognition. Casha's wand. The moment Helena gripped it fully, magic rippled outward. Her senses sharpened, colors brightened, and for the first time in the vault, she heard something. A single word. Welcome. Then silence again. She turned, and nearly jumped out of her skin. Standing behind her, perfectly still, was Professor Sinistra. Or not quite her. This version wore deep black robes stitched with stars, and her eyes glowed faintly silver. A projection? A memory? She opened her mouth, and though her lips moved, the vault silenced the sound. Instead, the voice bloomed inside Helena's mind. If you found this place, then the line is not broken. The vault recognizes your blood. Helena couldn't speak, but she nodded. The projection continued, her face solemn. The foundation is failing. Sealed long ago beneath Hogwarts, it sustains the ancient magic that binds the castle. Protections, wards, the very heartbeat of the school. Casha Granger sacrificed her name and life to preserve it, but the magic was never meant to last forever. Images swirled in Helena's vision, a golden thread unraveling, stone crumbling beneath the school, shadows bleeding through cracks in the ground. You are not just her heir, the vision said. You are her continuation. Helena's fingers tightened around the wand. Cain Rattle seeks the core of the foundation. If he finds it before you do, Hogwarts will fall. The vision began to fade. Helena rushed forward, silently begging for more. But only one final phrase echoed in her thoughts. Follow the line where memory sinks. Beneath the mirror. There it waits. The image flickered out. The vault dimmed. Helena turned and raced back through the corridor, the medallion pulsing against her chest and Casha's wand clutched tightly in her hand. She didn't return to her dorm. Instead, she slipped into the astronomy tower, empty this time of night, and sat alone beneath the stars. The silence up here felt different. Less heavy, more like a calm before a storm. She had new clues. New purpose. But she also had fear gnawing at the edge of her resolve. Cain Rattle wanted the core. The foundation was cracking. And the only lead she had now was a cryptic phrase. Beneath the mirror. What mirror? The mirror of Erist? It was supposed to be hidden, moved after the war, forgotten. She looked up at the sky, the stars swirling like they did in Sinistra's robes. She thought of Hermione, smart, cautious Hermione, who would have tried to talk her out of this. And for the first time, Helena considered telling her everything. But not yet. Not until she found the mirror. Not until she understood the truth. The real truth. Before Raoul did. The morning after her journey to the silent vault, Helena sat at the Gryffindor table during breakfast, eyes flicking between the professors and the enchanted ceiling overhead. Her mind raced, full of possibilities. One clue echoed in her thoughts louder than the clink of cutlery or the murmur of students. Beneath the mirror. But which mirror? Only one truly legendary mirror existed at Hogwarts, the mirror of Erist. Hidden long ago, moved for its protection, it was more than a mere magical object. It showed your heart's deepest desire. And if what she had heard in the vault was true, it might be connected to the foundation itself. She turned toward Hermione, who was deep in conversation with Professor McGonagall at the staff table. Helena hesitated. She still wasn't ready to reveal everything. But she needed help. She found Hermione just outside the Transfiguration corridor after breakfast, pacing with a stack of books in her arms. "Hey," Helena said casually. "Do you remember the Mirror of Erist? You know, from first year?" Hermione paused, brow furrowed. "Of course. Dumbledore had it hidden after Harry used it to stop Voldemort. No one's supposed to know where it is now." Helena tried to sound nonchalant. "Do you know where they moved it?" Hermione gave her a suspicious look. "Why are you asking?" Helena improvised. "We were discussing magical artifacts and history of magic, and someone mentioned it might have been used again during the Battle of Hogwarts." Hermione softened a little, but didn't let her guard down completely. "There are rumors. I've heard it was sealed beneath the North Tower after the war. Filch used to grumble about locking doors that reflected lies. He never said more. That was enough." Helena nodded thanks and quickly headed off before Hermione could ask more questions. The North Tower was rarely used these days. A single winding staircase led to a locked wooden door etched with runes long faded by time. With the medallion hidden beneath her robes and Casha's wand tucked under her cloak, Helena approached the door at dusk. She held up the wand. Nothing happened. Then she took out the medallion and pressed it to the wood. A soft hum spread through the stone, and the door melted into mist. Inside, the air shimmered with faint enchantment, and in the center of the room stood the Mirror of Erist. Its ornate frame was more worn than Helena had expected, but the glass was pristine, glowing faintly even in the half-light. She approached slowly, expecting to see her family or herself mastering spells, or standing beside Hermione in triumph. Instead, the mirror showed stone. Not a dream. Not a desire. A place. Beneath Hogwarts. A chamber with roots spreading through the floor like veins. A golden light at the center. And a pedestal. She blinked. In the mirror, someone approached the pedestal. It was her. The real her stepped back in shock. Not a desire, she whispered. A memory? She looked again. The image remained. The mirror, somehow, wasn't showing her wish, but the future. Or maybe the past. A possibility burned into magic. And then the glass began to ripple. Words appeared. Speak truth. Speak name. Helena hesitated, her voice barely a whisper. Helena Granger. Nothing happened. She tried again, stronger. I am Helena Casha Granger. Blood of the Foundation. The glass burst into golden light. Her surroundings changed. She was standing in a stone corridor now, the mirror gone, replaced by a narrow hallway lit with blue torches. She whirled around, but the door she entered through was no longer there. The wand in her hand glowed gently. She moved forward. As she walked, murals began to emerge on the walls, painted in ancient styles, glowing with hints of enchantment. They told the story of the founders, of Hogwarts' creation, of magical cores buried deep beneath the school to stabilize its immense magic. Then came the image of a young witch in green and gold. Casha Granger. She was shown sealing the foundation chamber, holding the same medallion, her face stern with purpose. At the end of the corridor was another archway. This one bore an inscription in Casha's script. Only one of true line and clear heart may enter. Blood cannot lie. Helena stepped forward and raised her wand. It glowed brighter, then dimmed. Something was wrong. From behind her came a sudden gust of wind. A voice echoed off the stone. Did you really think I wouldn't follow you? She turned, heart thudding. Cain Rattle stood in the middle of the corridor, wand out, a cruel smile on his lips. The woman with the silver brooch followed just behind him, her hands glowing with restrained magic. Helena backed toward the arch. How did you? Rattle laughed. The Foundation sings, girl. You woke it up. We've been waiting for someone to stir its magic again. And now that you've opened the path, his grin widened. We'll take it from here. No, Helena whispered. She raised her wand. The woman stepped forward, raising both hands. A pulse of force hit Helena like a hammer, throwing her backward into the archway. But instead of falling, she passed through the stone. And vanished. Rattle ran to the arch and slammed his fist into the wall. What? The brooch woman scowled. The gate is bound to blood. She passed. We didn't. Raoul's eyes glittered with fury. Then we make sure she doesn't come back out. Inside the foundation chamber, Helena rose slowly. Before her stretched a vast underground sanctum. Pillars formed from root-like stone, ceiling laced with magical runes, and at its heart the pedestal. It was real. The same one from her vision. The same one from Casha's last memory. She stepped forward, heart pounding. This was it. The foundation. The secret Hogwarts had buried for centuries. And now it was in her hands. Behind her, the chamber door sealed shut with a thunderous boom. And the final test of blood and memory had just begun. The door behind Helena sealed with a sound that echoed through the vast chamber, reverberating like the closing of a vault in time. Dust drifted from the ceiling, glowing faintly in the enchanted light. She was alone, truly alone, and yet the magic in the room thrummed as if watching her. The foundation chamber was massive. A dome-like sanctuary carved deep beneath Hogwarts, supported by twisting stone roots that pulsed faintly with golden veins. The air buzzed with ancient energy, like the whole castle breathed through this room. Every heartbeat felt like it synchronized with the slow thrum in the walls. At the center stood the pedestal, exactly as she had seen it in the mirror. Upon it rested a circular stone tablet, inscribed with swirling runes and surrounded by 5 empty grooves. Helena stepped closer, the medallion around her neck vibrating gently. She didn't understand everything yet, but instinct and blood told her this was the core Casha had once sealed, the last barrier protecting Hogwarts magic from collapse. And it wasn't just an object. It was alive. The tablet pulsed the moment she approached, and the grooves lit up, one by one, until all 5 glowed. The room reacted, walls humming with power. Then the tablet shimmered, and from its surface rose an image of Casha Granger, projected in glowing gold. Helena's breath caught. This Casha looked older than in the mural, her robes worn, hair streaked with silver, eyes deep with purpose. Yet her presence radiated strength and kindness. "To my heir," the image spoke. "If you've come this far, then the foundation is cracking and Hogwarts is in danger. I cannot guide you further, not entirely. But I've left the tests. Only one who carries both my blood and the right heart can repair what I once sealed." Helena nodded slowly. She felt it deep inside, the call, the inheritance, the burden. Casha's voice continued. "To restore the foundation, you must complete the trials of memory, magic, intention, and trust. Each one will test not your strength, but your soul. Fail, and the foundation will remain broken. Succeed, and the castle will endure." The image faded. The tablet pulsed once, and a doorway opened on the left wall, shaped like an eye, runes swirling around it. Helena hesitated only a moment before stepping inside. The first trial was the trial of memory. She found herself inside a fog-shrouded hall. On either side stood tall mirrors, not reflecting her appearance, but moments from her life. One showed her first day at Hogwarts, overwhelmed but determined. Another showed Hermione, hugging her fiercely after Helena was sorted into Hufflepuff. Others were harder. Her parents arguing in hushed tones about Hermione's safety during the war. Hermione sobbing quietly after a long night researching alone in the library, too tired to go on. And Helena, walking away once, angry, jealous of her sister's fame, shouting something cruel. A voice echoed through the room. "To remember is to see the truth." She moved forward. The final mirror showed a moment she had buried, a scene not from Hogwarts but home. She had broken into Hermione's old trunk, found letters about Casha Granger, and mocked her sister for believing in fairy tales. She remembered Hermione's hurt, her silence for days. Tears stung Helena's eyes. She touched the glass. "I remember," she whispered. "And I was wrong." The mirror shimmered, then dissolved. A door opened. The second trial was the trial of magic. She stood in a circular chamber with 5 stone figures surrounding her. Each one held a different wand shape, dragon-hilted, thorny, runed, featherlight, and crooked like lightning. Above them floated an inscription. "Choose not the strongest. Choose what fits your hand." She stared at them, unsure. Each wand radiated power, but when she reached for the runed one, it sparked, rejecting her. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She drew Casha's wand from her robes, not one of the 5, but hers. She stepped into the center and raised it. The room responded. Light burst from the floor, the 5 statues bowed their heads, and the chamber accepted her choice. She had chosen not borrowed strength, but legacy. The third trial, trial of intention, was the hardest. Helena entered a room filled with illusions, her own deepest desires brought to life. There she was, standing on the stage as the most famous witch of her age, students chanting her name. There she was, casting spells effortlessly, surpassing even Hermione. There she was, older, powerful, alone. A voice asked softly, "Do you want this for you, or for them?" She turned away from the visions. "I don't want glory," she said. "I want to protect them." The illusions faded. The doorway appeared. The final test, the trial of trust, was silent. She stood at the edge of a bridge of light that led to the foundation's core, but the path was crumbling. Across the gap stood an image of Hermione. Only this time, Helena knew it wasn't a trick. She could feel the thread connecting them. To reach the core, she had to jump, blindly, and trust that Hermione would catch her. Helena took a breath, stepped back, and leapt. For a moment, there was nothing. Then light caught her. Hermione's projection reached out, holding her, steadying her. She landed on the other side, and the bridge behind her vanished. At the heart of the chamber, the foundation pulsed like a heart, golden, glowing, wild. As she approached, the 5 grooves in the tablet filled with symbols. The medallion around her neck glowed in unison. A deep voice echoed through the chamber, Casha's voice, final and clear. "The line is restored. The foundation accepts you." Helena touched the center. A surge of energy burst outward, rising through the roots, through the stone, into the castle. For a moment, Every light in Hogwarts flickered. Every wall shimmered. Students looked up, confused, as warmth rushed through the air like summer wind. Above ground, Hermione, still talking with McGonagall, froze. She felt it, and she knew. Helena had found it, and something was about to change. The light faded slowly, like a sigh through the ancient bones of Hogwarts. Helena stood before the now silent pedestal at the heart of the foundation chamber, chest heaving. The chamber, which had pulsed with golden energy moments before, now glowed softly, peacefully, like a storm that had passed. The roots overhead no longer trembled. The magic had settled. Balanced. She had done it, but she wasn't finished. The pedestal pulsed once more, and a small drawer slid open at its base. Inside was a rolled scroll, sealed with a symbol Helena didn't recognize, a flame wrapped in ivy. She reached for it, but the moment her fingers touched the parchment, a second pulse echoed, colder this time. Behind her, the wall she'd come through began to crack. She turned, wand up. The stone surface twisted and buckled until it peeled away like a curtain, revealing another passage, one she had not entered through. This was not part of Casha's design. And someone was coming. Helena backed away from the pedestal, scroll clenched tightly in one hand. From the passage emerged Cain Rattle. But this time he wasn't alone. The woman with the silver brooch flanked him, and behind them floated 3 masked figures draped in robes that shimmered like smoke. They looked ancient, but not weak. Helena instinctively raised her wand, her breath catching. Rattle smiled without warmth. You thought it would end with the trials? Helena kept her voice steady. The Foundation chose me. You don't belong here. Rattle stepped forward, his eyes glowing faintly with magic. That may be true, but we don't need to belong. We only need access. His gaze shifted toward the pedestal, and his smile deepened. You did the hard part for us. I won't let you take it, Helena said. You can't stop us, the woman with the silver brooch added, her voice like smoke curling from burning parchment. You're a child with borrowed power. Helena didn't flinch. I've earned every step I've taken. The figures behind Rattle raised their hands, and magic shimmered through the air, oppressive, suffocating. Then the chamber responded. Roots burst from the walls, stone vines twisting downward like guardians summoned from the deep. The pedestal flared once with golden light, and Helena felt the foundation stir again, this time in defense. The scroll in her hand pulsed, and she understood. It was a ward, a seal, a final lock that Casha had never activated. Now, with the foundation restored, the seal could be completed, but only if she could bind it in time. Rattle raised his wand. Helena dodged, and the curse hit the ground beside her, cracking the stone. She ran, heart pounding, dodging roots and spells alike as the masked figures closed in. They weren't just spellcasters, they were siphoning magic, draining light from the chamber with every step. She ducked behind one of the stone pillars, unrolling the scroll. The runes on it shimmered and reformed before her eyes, rearranging themselves in a language she somehow understood. She placed the scroll on the ground and pressed her wand to it. A glowing ring expanded outward. Rattle noticed. She's sealing us out, he shouted. Stop her. Helena didn't stop. She poured her magic into the runes, voice steady even as spells cracked around her. By root and core, by blood and line, let no false hand touch what's mine. Let power rest, let guardians wake, this bond one form, none shall break. The runes flashed, and a wave of golden light erupted from the scroll. The masked figures screamed, not in pain but in fury, as they were flung backward by the force. The woman with the silver brooch vanished in a blink of white fire. Rattle braced himself against the wall, snarling, his face contorting. But he couldn't hold. The wave hit him, and he was thrown clear from the chamber, crashing into the new passage and vanishing into the shadows. Silence fell. Helena collapsed to her knees, breath ragged, heart pounding. The seal had taken. The Foundation had accepted it. And for now, the intruders were gone. The scroll turned to ash in her hands, having served its final purpose. She lay there for a moment, listening to the silence. Not empty silence, but safe, steady, living silence. The kind that speaks of protection and purpose. And then, from somewhere above, she heard voices. Real ones. Professor McGonagall strode into the upper antechamber, followed by Hermione, Professor Flitwick, and 2 Aurors. The ancient door, The one Helena had passed through hours ago was open now, and the magic within was radiating upward, calling to those attuned to it. "She's here," Hermione whispered, pushing ahead. They found her sitting beside the pedestal, robes dusty, cheeks streaked with tears and ash, but very much alive. The light of the foundation pulsed behind her like a second sunrise. Hermione ran to her, dropping to her knees. "Helena!" Helena looked up, exhaustion washing over her like a tide. "I found it," she murmured. "It's real. All of it." Hermione pulled her into a tight hug. "I know. We felt it. Everyone did." McGonagall stepped closer, her usually stern face softening. "Miss Granger, I believe we owe you more than just thanks." Helena nodded slowly, eyes turning toward the glowing roots above. "It's not over yet. They know how to reach it now. Raoul and others." One of the Aurors stepped forward. "We'll increase protections immediately. This chamber can't be left unguarded again." Helena looked to Hermione. They weren't just trying to steal magic. They were trying to change it, twist it. They're not done. Hermione met her gaze, her own face shadowed by realization. "Then we'll prepare." But in her heart she knew. Helena had become more than a student. She was now a guardian of Hogwarts. A legacy reborn. And the storm was far from over. For the first time in over 1,000 years, the foundation chamber remained open. Wards hummed in harmony, newly reformed by Helena's efforts. Yet the calm that now wrapped Hogwarts was deceptive, like the stillness of air before a lightning strike. Up in the headmistress's office, Helena sat across from Hermione and Professor McGonagall. The fire crackled behind them, casting shadows on ancient bookshelves and the worn upholstery of the high-backed chairs. Helena gripped a warm mug of tea, but barely sipped it. "You've had little rest," McGonagall said gently. "I'll sleep," Helena replied, then paused. "Eventually." Hermione leaned forward. "Tell us everything." From the moment the door opened. Helena spoke slowly, recounting her descent, the Foundation's presence, the 4 trials, and the sudden arrival of Cain Rattle and the others. Her voice remained steady, but her hands trembled as she described sealing the chamber with the scroll. Hermione looked troubled. "That scroll, it was Casha's final seal. I only found fragments about it, but I never believed it still existed." "It responded to my blood," Helena murmured. "To my intent. It wasn't just a lock, it was a warning. Casha knew someone like Raoul would come." McGonagall stood and crossed to the window, hands clasped tightly. "Raoul was expelled from Durmstrang 2 decades ago. Obsession with dark ley lines. Forbidden rituals. We thought he'd vanished." She turned, eyes sharp. "Who were the others?" "I don't know," Helena admitted. "The woman with the brooch, her magic was different. Older. And the masked ones, they didn't speak. But they weren't human. At least, not entirely." Hermione exchanged a grim look with McGonagall. "Then we're dealing with something beyond our archives. They're not just after the Foundation. They want to reshape Hogwarts' core. That could shift all magic in Britain." Helena straightened. "Then we stop them. Before they try again." McGonagall nodded solemnly. "You've earned more than commendation, Helena. You've earned trust. But you're still a student." "I'm not asking to fight them alone," Helena said. "I just want to be part of the defense. I am part of it, whether we want it or not." Hermione's expression was filled with pride and worry. "We'll need to tread carefully. The Ministry's going to come down hard once they find out what's under the school. They'll try to take control," McGonagall muttered. "They'll want to seal it, study it, weaponize it." Helena looked up. Casha didn't build the Foundation for power. She built it for protection. If they turn it into a tool, they'll destroy everything Hogwarts stands for. There was a heavy silence. Then Hermione reached into her bag and pulled out a black, leather-bound journal. "I wasn't sure whether to give this to you," she said, placing it before Helena. "It's Casha's. Or at least the part of it I found. I've never been able to open it." Helena touched the cover. The leather was warm under her fingers, humming faintly. The moment her fingertips brushed the clasp, it clicked open. Hermione blinked. "Well," McGonagall said dryly, "that settles the bloodline question." Inside the journal, delicate ink sketches and handwritten entries spilled across yellowing parchment. Maps of the chamber. Diagrams of magical root systems. Casha's theories on foundational ley currents. and scribbled warnings, some nearly illegible. Helena turned to a page near the center. Her breath caught. A hand-drawn symbol, the flame wrapped in ivy. The same one that sealed the scroll. Hermione leaned closer. That's her sigil. It's been lost for centuries. Helena's eyes scanned the page. There's a note here. If the seal fails, the fifth key must be found. Fifth key? Hermione echoed. Helena nodded. She built 5 safety mechanisms into the foundation. The trials were only 4. The fifth, it must be hidden. And if Raoul finds it first, McGonagall's voice was tight. He'll take control of the foundation entirely, Hermione finished. And the castle will no longer answer to us. Helena closed the journal, jaw set. Then we have to find it before he does. By the next morning, Hogwarts was no longer calm. Word had spread, not of the foundation itself, but of an incident beneath the castle. The headmistress had locked down several corridors near the lower dungeons. Rumors flew like wild pixies. Some said Helena had unearthed a treasure, others whispered of a chamber full of ancient ghosts, or a beast larger than a dragon. In truth, the faculty had worked hard to keep the foundation secret. But secrets rarely stay buried at Hogwarts. And Helena could feel the tension in the walls. In the Hufflepuff common room, she sat beside Caito and Nora, both of whom watched her like she might explode at any moment. So, you're telling us you literally rebuilt Hogwarts' core? Caito whispered, half in awe, half terrified. No, Helena said quietly. I just made sure it didn't collapse. Nora nudged her gently. You faced down a group of dark wizards and ancient ghost mask things, and you sealed them out by yourself. You don't get to downplay that. Helena managed a faint smile. I didn't feel brave. I felt like I was barely holding everything together. That is brave, Caito said. It's not about charging in. It's about not giving up. A soft knock on the wall interrupted them. To everyone's surprise, the stone near the fireplace slid aside, and Headmistress McGonagall stepped in. All conversation halted. I apologize for the intrusion, she said. Miss Granger, a word, please. Caito and Nora stared wide-eyed as Helena rose and followed the headmistress into the hallway. Once outside, McGonagall handed her a folded slip of parchment. It's begun. Helena unfolded the note. It bore one line, written in fine, angular script. The fifth key lies where Hogwarts remembers what it chose to forget. There was no signature, but the parchment smelled faintly of ash and frost. Helena looked up. Raoul was moving again, and the next chapter of Casha's legacy was about to be uncovered. The words on the parchment lingered in Helena's mind like a riddle carved into her bones. The fifth key lies where Hogwarts remembers what it chose to forget. She read them over and over again as she walked through the moonlit corridors of the castle that night, trying to make sense of what Raoul, or whoever had sent the message, meant. She had searched Casha's journal again before leaving the common room. Nowhere did it reference a fifth trial's location, but there were subtle notes, whispers in the margins. Memory hidden in stone. What the founders erased, the castle retains. Do not trust the archives. Hogwarts, like people, had memory. Not just in books and portraits, but in its stones, its walls, its ancient sentient magic. And sometimes it forgot things on purpose. She stopped before the tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy on the 7th floor and paced 3 times. I need to find what Hogwarts chose to forget. The door to the room of requirement appeared instantly. She stepped inside. But it wasn't the familiar version she knew. The room full of hidden objects or training dummies or cozy chairs. Tonight it was silent, empty, and then the walls shimmered. Rows of glowing shelves rose from the floor like memories being unearthed. They bore objects wrapped in silver threads, some cracked, some humming faintly with suppressed magic. The room had transformed into a memory vault, a place even Hogwarts itself had tried not to recall. She moved down the rows, her footsteps the only sound. A broken tiara, a snake-shaped locket, pulsing faintly despite being destroyed years ago. The ghosts of dark magic, remnants of past horrors, were still here, sealed and silent. The castle hadn't forgotten them, it had buried them. She stopped at the end of the final row. A plinth rested there, black and smooth, covered in dust. Upon it sat a small box carved from stone and bound with ivy motifs. The sigil of Casha glowed faintly on the lid, the flame wrapped in ivy. Helena reached out slowly. The The moment her fingers brushed the box, her vision blurred. She was no longer in the room of requirement. She stood in a vast hall filled with swirling mist and the echo of voices long gone. Before her stood Casha Granger, her face not stern like the portrait, but filled with weary kindness. "You've come far," Casha said, voice echoing like wind through leaves. "But the fifth key cannot be taken. It must be remembered." "I don't understand," Helena said. "What is it? Why hide it?" Casha turned, the mist swirling to reveal a scene, a memory, of the four founders gathered around a glowing map of Hogwarts. A fifth figure, cloaked in shadow, stood beside them. "They weren't always in agreement," Casha said. "There was a fifth voice once. One who saw the danger of hoarding magic, even for protection." Helena's eyes widened. "A forgotten founder?" Casha nodded. "Not officially. Not anymore." She erased herself. Chose to vanish so the others wouldn't be torn apart by her truth. Her key is the memory Hogwarts suppressed, the choice to forget. Helena's heart thudded in her chest. "What do I need to do?" Casha stepped closer. "You must awaken her memory. Only then will the fifth key be yours. But beware, memory is power. And power always comes with a cost." The vision faded. Helena was back in the room of requirement, clutching the stone box. It opened with a soft click. Inside was a silver diadem, not Ravenclaw's but different. It shimmered with ivy filigree, and at its center burned a faint, steady flame. The moment she touched it, the floor shifted. The entire room trembled, and walls collapsed around her, revealing an ancient stone staircase spiraling downward, far deeper than even the Chamber of Secrets. The castle had opened another path. Helena steeled herself. She descended. Word of Helena's disappearance reached Hermione and McGonagall within the hour. Kaido had found her bed empty, and the Marauder's map, borrowed from James Potter, showed her name flickering in a corridor that shouldn't exist. "She's gone into the castle's deeper layers," Hermione said grimly. "It's reacting to her more and more." "Which means the Foundation recognizes her as its heir," McGonagall replied. "But if Raoul gets there first—" "He won't," Hermione said. But even as she said it, worry gnawed at her. Helena was strong. Stronger than anyone had realized. But she was still just a girl walking through the oldest, most dangerous memories Hogwarts had hidden away. And she was walking straight into the unknown. The staircase Helena followed wound downward for what felt like hours. At its base was a door, arched and ancient, covered in ivy and words written in runes she barely recognized. She spoke them aloud. The door side open. Inside was a small, circular chamber with no ceiling. Stars shone overhead, impossibly close, and in the center was a pool of silvery water that pulsed like a beating heart. She stepped forward. A voice rose from the water. "You would awaken the Forgotten One?" Helena swallowed. "Yes. I need her memory." The water stirred. "And will you carry her burden if you succeed? Will you hold what the others feared?" "I will." The chamber darkened, and the stars blinked out. The water surged upward, not as liquid, but as a figure of light and shadow. A woman, cloaked in ivy, her eyes burning with ancient magic. She looked at Helena with a gaze that seemed to weigh her soul. "You are Casha's blood," she said. "But you are not Casha. You are more." "I need the fifth key," Helena said. "Raoul is trying to control the Foundation. If he finds it first, he seeks power. You seek balance. That is the only reason I allow this." The woman stepped closer, and her hand pressed to Helena's chest. "You shall carry my memory. You shall become the vessel of the fifth key." Light poured through Helena, not searing but true. She gasped, falling to her knees as visions exploded behind her eyes. The creation of Hogwarts, the choice to hide, the betrayal, the burial of a name. And then silence. The light faded. Helena rose. The woman was gone. But the chamber had changed. And Helena now knew where the final trial would take place. The heart of Hogwarts itself. The place where the founders sealed their first spell. And she wasn't the only one heading there. Because far above, in the Forbidden Forest, Cain Rattle had found his own door. And this time, he wasn't coming alone. Helena emerged from the chamber with the silver diadem in her satchel, its magic pulsing gently against her side. But something within her had changed. The fifth key wasn't just an artifact, it was knowledge. Memory. A living legacy embedded in her soul. The identity of the forgotten founder now stirred inside her, awakening feelings and fragments of another life. She could see her now, the founder with no portrait, no house, no legacy left behind. A woman called Helena Thorn. She had stood beside Godric, Helga, Rowena, and Salazar at the school's founding, and then vanished from history by choice. Helena had believed magic should flow freely through the land, not be locked away or hoarded by the elite. She had created spells to bind magical harmony into Hogwarts foundations, not for power, but for balance. But when Salazar and Rowena disagreed, fearing vulnerability, Helena sealed herself and her knowledge away. Now Helena was her vessel, and that meant more than just protection, it meant truth. She re-entered the main halls of Hogwarts as dawn broke, light slanting across the corridors. She'd been gone for hours, but the castle still felt strangely quiet. Too quiet. A low vibration under her feet made her stop. The stones were humming. Not peacefully, anxiously. Something was wrong. She broke into a run. By the time she reached the grand staircase, Hermione was already there with Professors Flitwick, Sprout, and several Aurors. The floor beneath their feet trembled again. Helena! Hermione rushed over, wrapping her in a tight hug. Where have you been? The castle. Something's wrong. I found the fifth key, Helena said breathlessly. And I know what he's after. Hermione pulled back. Raoul! He's heading for the source, the original spell that anchors Hogwarts' power. Helena Thorn created it. It's older than the Foundation Chamber, deeper than anything the school was built on. And now he's going to corrupt it. Flitwick's eyes widened. That spell predates even the castle's first cornerstone. It's a living ley thread. No wonder the castle feels disturbed. There's more, Helena said, lowering her voice. The key isn't just a magical token. It's memory, Helona's knowledge, passed to me. I can feel her thoughts like they're mine. Hermione exchanged a glance with Sprout. Then you're the only one who might be able to stop him. Professor McGonagall arrived a moment later, face grim. He's already inside. The wards were bypassed with help. Helena's breath caught. Help? From inside the school? We suspect so, McGonagall said. Some of the Outer Watch spells were disabled from the astronomy tower. Someone let him in. A traitor. Helena's mind reeled with possibilities, but there was no time to waste on suspicion. She stepped forward. Then we go to the source. Now. The entrance lay hidden beneath the oldest part of the castle. Not the dungeons, but beneath the foundation itself, where raw magic pooled like an underground river. The only way in was through a stone gate behind the statue of the Four, a long-forgotten monument behind the great hall, covered in moss and time. Helena stood before it, raised the silver diadem, and placed it onto her head. The ivy glowed. The statue shuddered. Then it split open. Behind it, a staircase spiraled downward into pure darkness, lit only by pale blue veins of magic along the walls. They descended, Helena, Hermione, and 3 Aurors, deeper than even the Foundation Chamber had gone, down into the memory of the earth itself. At the bottom, a massive circular vault opened around them, unlike anything Helena had ever seen. The ceiling swirled like a storm cloud. The floor was cracked but covered in flowing runes that moved and danced. In the center hovered a pulsating sphere of light and shadow, the source. And standing before it was Cain Rattle, flanked by the masked woman with the frost brooch and 2 more dark-cloaked figures. Rattle didn't even turn as they approached. I wondered how long it would take, he said lazily. Helena, you're becoming quite the distraction. You're trespassing on sacred ground, Hermione snapped, wand raised. Back away from the source. Sacred. Rattle chuckled. You still think this place belongs to you? To tradition? No. It belongs to the future. Helena stepped forward. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Oh, I do, Rattle said, turning now with gleaming eyes. This is the root, the heart of Hogwarts. And with it I'll rewrite the school, the world in my image. A place where magic is reshaped, where power answers to those bold enough to seize it. The woman beside him moved, frost trailing from her hands. You brought the 5th key, she said, voice barely audible. It sings through your blood. I'm not giving it to you, Helena said. You'll tear the source apart. Good, Rattle snarled. That's the point. He raised his hand, and the cloaked figures lunged. Spells flew. One aura was flung across the chamber before he could shout. The second conjured a shield just in time as ice daggers shattered against it. Hermione's wand danced in blinding arcs, deflecting hexes and firing counters in quick succession. But Raoul was focused on Helena. Their magic clashed like storms. He summoned flames that slithered like serpents. Helena, guided by Eloan's instincts, countered with green fire. A spell not taught in any book, one born from the earth itself. "You're hers," Raoul spat, his robes billowing. "The forgotten one's little heir." "She was never forgotten," Helena said, standing her ground. "You were just too blind to remember." She raised her hand. The silver diadem pulsed. The runes on the floor responded. And suddenly the source turned. It faced her. Raoul staggered as if struck. "No, that power belongs to me." The sphere of light and shadow began to unravel, strands peeling back and drawing toward Helena. She felt it enter her chest, not burning, not violent, but like a puzzle piece returning to its place. She saw everything. The moment Hogwarts was born. Eloan weaving the first spell into the land. Her sorrow when her friends chose fear over balance. The sealing of the source, the silence that followed. And now a rebirth. Raoul screamed and threw one final curse. But the source shielded Helena and reflected it. The bolt struck him squarely. He crumpled to the floor, unconscious. The masked woman vanished in a blast of frost, the others fleeing with her. Hermione rushed to Helena, eyes wide with awe and fear. "What did you just do?" "I didn't fight it," Helena whispered. "I remembered it. And now it remembers me." Above them, Hogwarts shifted. And the war for its soul had truly begun. The castle hadn't felt this alive in centuries. From the tip of the astronomy tower to the deepest cellar, Hogwarts pulsed with new energy. Magic crackled in the walls, glowing faintly through tapestries and torch brackets. Statues shifted when no one looked. Even the portraits stirred restlessly, whispering to each other with anxious eyes. And at the center of it all, Helena Granger stood in the courtyard, wrapped in the lingering glow of the source's magic. She could still feel it flowing through her, not like a power to wield, but like a presence. Eloan Thorn's essence rested deep inside her now, not overpowering, but awake. As if the castle had granted her guardianship over the oldest spell it had ever known. "I feel like I'm standing in 2 centuries at once," Helena said quietly. Hermione stood beside her, arms folded tightly over her robes. "That's exactly what's happening. You're not just a student anymore. Hogwarts has accepted you as one of its own." "I didn't ask for that." "No," Hermione said, turning to her. "But you answered anyway. That's what makes you ready." Above them, a soft flutter of wings passed. The school owls were restless, circling the towers at dawn. And far below, even the lake shimmered unnaturally, as if stirred by something deep beneath the surface. Hogwarts had awoken. But so had its enemies. Cain Rattle was now being held in the deepest magical cell under the school. Enchanted chains bound him in silence. The Aurors refused to risk Azkaban just yet. Raoul had spoken in tongues when they brought him in, babbling about fractures in the weave and a crown of shadow still waiting to rise. "We stopped him," Helena said. "But why doesn't it feel over?" Hermione looked down toward the dungeons. "Because it isn't. It took 3 days for the chaos to calm." Students, unaware of the full truth, were told there had been an ancient magical disturbance that was now resolved. Classes resumed, though more quietly. Professors walked the corridors in pairs. Wards were strengthened. Secret passageways sealed. But none of it quieted the feeling Helena carried. At night, she dreamed of shifting corridors, of spells whispering in forgotten tongues. Sometimes she heard Eloan's voice, not speaking, but humming a melody that had no words. On the 4th day, McGonagall summoned her to the headmistress's office. "I'm sending you away," McGonagall said without preamble. Helena blinked. "What?" "Not permanently. A journey. One you need to make before this story ends." Hermione was already seated nearby, watching her daughter carefully. McGonagall leaned forward. "We have reason to believe Raoul's followers are searching for something he didn't find. Something tied to Eloan's exile. A second artifact." Helena's voice dropped. "Another key?" "Not a key," Hermione said. "A memory." McGonagall nodded. "We believe it was left behind when Eloan erased herself from history. Hidden not here, but in one of the last places she visited before the erasure. Helena already knew the answer before McGonagall said it. The Forest of Thorn. A place so old even the Forbidden Forest feared it. By nightfall, she was ready. McGonagall had arranged for a small group to accompany her. Kaido Watanabe, who had refused to let her go alone, Professor Binns, shockingly, who had grown interested in Alolan's tale and volunteered as a guide, and one of the castle's sentient ghost creatures, a pale wisp named Corwin, who had once served as a familiar to Rowena Ravenclaw. As they approached the edge of the Forbidden Forest, a sense of dread settled in. The air was heavy. Even the centaurs had retreated from the area. The trees grew taller, more twisted. Their branches knotted like grasping fingers. "Are we sure about this?" Kaido whispered. Helena nodded. "The memory is in there. I can feel it." They crossed the boundary line and stepped into the Forest of Thorn. Instantly, the world changed. The air thickened. Light warped. Time itself seemed to flicker. "Do not speak aloud," Corwin warned, drifting beside them. "The trees remember voices. Some of them don't like to be remembered." Helena walked carefully, her wand raised, the diadem hidden beneath her cloak. As they moved deeper, she began to see signs, runes carved into tree bark, glowing faintly. Not warnings. Directions. "She left a trail," Helena whispered. For hours they walked, passing pools of still water where no reflection showed, past stones that vibrated if touched. It was a place unbound by normal magic, wild and strange. Then they reached it, a clearing surrounded by 13 stone pillars, each etched with a different symbol, house crests, ancient beasts, elements. At the center was a tree stump petrified, carved with Alolan's flame and ivy sigil. Helena stepped forward and placed her hand on it. The world shifted. A memory burst into life. Alolan stood there, not a ghost, but a projection. She looked tired. Sad. "If you found this," she said, "then the balance is breaking again. I left this piece of myself behind, a part one could not bring into the castle. Because even there, some truths were too heavy to carry." Helena's chest tightened. "Memory can be a gift," Alolan continued. "But it is also a blade. And there is one who seeks to twist it. Not Raoul, but the one who made him." The air grew cold. "Beware the Shaded One." Alolan's image flickered. "If you take this memory, you will see what I saw. You will carry what I could not bear. Choose, child of balance. Choose." Helena knelt and touched the stump. A surge of knowledge crashed into her. Images of a cloaked figure walking beside Alolan, whispering promises of a new age. A name buried so deep even Raoul never spoke it. A third force. Neither founder nor student. A sorcerer from before the founding, sealed away. She gasped, pulling back. Kaido caught her as she staggered. "Helena." She looked up, eyes wide with fear. Raoul wasn't the end. He was just the beginning. Binns drifted close, his expression unusually sharp. "Did you see the Shaded One?" Helena nodded slowly. "And I think he's waking up too." Behind them, the trees stirred, and the hunt for the final memory had begun. They ran, not from beasts or creatures, but from the feeling itself, the suffocating presence that pressed in from all sides as soon as Helena touched the petrified stump. The Forest of Thorn came alive around them, trees groaning and shifting as if they had bones. The wind carried whispers in a language none of them could understand. Above, the sky had darkened unnaturally fast, cloaking the canopy in violet twilight though it was barely noon. Kaido kept pace beside Helena, his wand drawn, eyes sharp. "What was that thing you saw? Who is the Shaded One?" "I don't know his name yet," Helena said, clutching the memory fragment to her chest. "But he's older than Hogwarts. Older than Alolan. She sealed him away before the school was even finished. And now Raoul's attempt to corrupt the source may have stirred him," Professor Binns muttered, gliding effortlessly through the dense roots. "Foolish. Arrogant. Typical. He's not sealed anymore," Helena whispered. Behind them, something creaked. Slowly. Deliberately. Corwin, the spectral wisp, darted back and swirled defensively. "Don't look directly at the movement," he warned. "It feeds on attention." "Then what do we do?" Kaido hissed. "We keep going," Helena said. "There's another marker ahead. I saw it in the memory, a stone arch covered in living ivy. That's where she sealed the second part of her memory. We're close." But the forest didn't want them to reach it. Vines slithered down from trees like ropes. The ground softened under their feet. Thorn branches grew across their path, and shapes shifted in the corners of their vision. Not creatures, but memories with bodies. Flickers of moments Helena had never lived. A boy burning under green fire, a woman screaming as shadows poured from her mouth, a crown made of smoke resting on a faceless figure's brow. Eloan had buried her memories for a reason. Now they were bleeding back into the world. Kaido slashed through a tangle of vines. You said she locked away knowledge she couldn't carry into the school. Why? Because it wasn't safe, Helena said. Because the truth could unravel everything. They broke through another layer of brush and stumbled into a new clearing. The stone arch stood at the center, just as Helena had seen, tall, jagged, and twisted with ivy that pulsed faintly with blue light. Runes lined its surface, some glowing, others faded. Beneath it, a shallow pool of silvery water reflected not the trees, but stars. It didn't belong to this forest. It didn't belong to this world. I know this place, Bins murmured. It's a convergence point. An anchor. This is where ley lines braid together. Eloan must have known. Helena approached the arch, feeling its pull like gravity. She knelt and placed the first memory fragment on the stones beneath it. The ivy curled tightly, binding the fragment into place. And then the pool began to shimmer. Another vision rose, a memory not of Eloan, but of the Shaded One. A man draped in dark robes that bled mist, standing atop a hill of ash. His voice was calm, too calm, as he spoke to Eloan in a long-forgotten tongue. The words translated in Helena's mind as if the forest itself whispered them. You bind magic to tradition. I seek to free it. Eloan replied firm. You would tear the world apart. Only what was built to cage it. The vision flashed again. A door. Hidden beneath the castle. Older than the foundation. Seal me now, but I will return. The child of 2 times will unbind me. The vision faded. Helena stood, trembling. He wasn't after Hogwarts itself. He was after what Hogwarts was built on, the prison Eloan forged beneath it. Corwin flickered nervously. He was entombed in memory, not stone. That's why the 5th key mattered. That's why Raoul failed. He didn't know where to look. But I do now, Helena said. Kaido swallowed. What was that about a child of 2 times? Helena looked at him slowly. I think it's me. Behind them, the wind shrieked. Leaves flew in a cyclone. From the trees emerged a new figure, not Raoul, not cloaked like the others. A girl no older than 16, her eyes black as pitch, her skin rippling with flickers of memory magic. Helena Granger, she said with a smile too wide. The key. The vessel. The mistake. Kaido stepped forward, wand raised. Who are you? I am the shard, she said softly. The piece he left behind. When Eloan sealed the Shaded One, he splintered himself. A fragment escaped. And now, she raised her hand. The pool shattered into mist. I've come to collect the rest. Magic surged from her palm, not like a spell, but like the cracking of a dam. Runes along the arch twisted and glowed red. The forest bent as if caught in a whirlwind. Bins tried to intercept, but the girl waved a hand, and the ghost screamed, a sound like glass shattering from the inside. He vanished in a blink. Professor! Helena cried. Kaido hurled a stunning spell. It passed straight through her. She laughed. Memory. Not matter. You can't fight what's already happened. Helena stepped forward. Then stop hiding. What do you want? To wake him fully. You've already started. You touched the source. You took the key. Now give me the rest. Helena reached inside her cloak and held up the diadem. The girl stepped forward eagerly, and Helena threw it behind her, straight through the arch. The stone gateway flared with blinding blue light, and the memory fragment sealed within activated, not releasing information, but locking it tighter. The girl screamed. The forest howled. Helena grabbed Kaido's hand. Now! Corwin reappeared in a puff of silver smoke, grasping both of them. A second later, they vanished. They reappeared in the courtyard of Hogwarts, collapsing to the cobblestones. Helena gasped for air. Kaido groaned beside her. What the hell just happened? Corwin flickered violently. She's loose. That fragment, it's intelligent. And it's not bound by time. She can appear wherever memory lives. Helena turned her eyes toward the castle. Then we have to act fast. There's one memory left, the prison beneath Hogwarts. If we don't find it before she does, the Shaded One will wake, Corwin finished gravely. And for the first time since the Chamber of the Source, Helena felt real fear. Because the final battle wouldn't be a duel. It would be a remembrance. One where forgetting might be the only way to win. The castle walls echoed with a different silence now. It wasn't peace, but anticipation, like the air before a storm or the brief, unnatural calm between heartbeats. Hogwarts was waiting. Watching. Helena sat beside the pensive in the room of requirement, her fingers brushing the surface of its silver mist. The vision from the forest of thorns still haunted her. Not just the image of the Shaded One, but his promise. The child of 2 times will unbind me. What did it mean? Hermione stood at the other end of the room, reading a crumbling scroll Caito had retrieved from the restricted section. His hair was still wet from the rain outside, and he looked like he hadn't slept. Here, he said suddenly, pointing to a symbol etched into the scroll, a jagged line split by a flame. This rune. It's the same one that was carved into the diadem's box. The same as Alolan's seal. Hermione leaned closer. It's not just a symbol. It's a map. Helena blinked. A map to what? To the chamber where she imprisoned him. It's not under the school, Hermione said slowly. It's within it, between the spaces of time. A room that only appears when past and present collide. Helena's breath caught. The memory chamber. Yes, Hermione said. Alolan didn't bury the final memory in the ground. She locked it inside a moment. A repeating fracture. The last time she saw him. The last moment before she sealed him away. Caito frowned. But how do we access a memory that's not ours? Hermione turned to her daughter, her eyes filled with pride and dread. You already did. The moment you absorbed the source, when the diadem recognized you, you became tethered to her memory. You can walk it, but only once. Helena stared at the pensive, heart pounding. What if I get lost? Then I'll find you, Hermione said, stepping closer. I'm going with you. What? No, you can't. It's too dangerous. I've walked through time before, Helena. I've survived things no one else remembers. I'm not letting you do this alone. Helena hesitated, then nodded. Together, mother and daughter stepped forward. Caito gripped Helena's shoulder, eyes full of everything he couldn't say. Come back. She offered him a half-smile. Try and stop me. They plunged into the pensive. It was winter when they landed. The world around them was strange, suspended in sepia tones, as if they were walking through a painting. Snow fell in slow motion. The walls of Hogwarts were half-formed, ghostly. Above them, a young Alolan thorn stood at the edge of a great marble hall, staring down a man wrapped in black robes. The Shaded One. This time, Helena saw his face. He looked ordinary. No glowing eyes, no fangs, no monstrous features. Just a man, young but weary, his gaze hollow as if he'd lived far too long. Alolan, he said, his voice quiet. You are throwing away centuries of understanding. No, she replied. I am saving them from you. He tilted his head. And the child you spoke of, the one born from the mingling of fates, she'll see it differently, won't she? Alolan's jaw tightened. She will stop you. The Shaded One smiled faintly, as if that were the answer he wanted. Hermione and Helena stood frozen in the vision, watching. She's binding the memory, Hermione whispered. Look, she's using the castle itself to contain it. Indeed, magical threads poured from Alolan's wand, winding around the Shaded One like chains of light. But he didn't resist. Instead, he placed something on the ground, a single silver shard, and whispered a name neither of them could hear. Then the room shattered. Time rewound, twisted. Suddenly Helena was no longer standing in the snowy hall but falling, through images and sounds, through memories layered like pages of a book, until she landed on stone. The chamber was dark, cold, silent, but Helena knew instantly where she was. Beneath the school, beneath the deepest foundations, the memory chamber. Its walls were etched in golden runes, all pulsing faintly. At its center sat a great stone prism, sealed on all sides, glowing softly from within. And atop it hovered the final memory, a flame suspended in time. Hermione appeared beside her, dazed. We found it, but someone else had too. The girl from the forest stood just beyond the prism, her smile unchanged. You brought me to it, she said. How kind. You can't access it, Helena snapped. It's sealed to blood and balance. The girl raised a finger, tracing a circle in the air. That's the thing about memory, Helena. You are balance. But I am everything that was forgotten. All the pain. All the regret. I am this chamber. The prism began to crack. Helena stepped forward, wand drawn. No. Hermione mirrored her. We won't let you wake him. The girl's eyes narrowed. Then forget. With a flick of her hand, she launched a wave of magic. Not a spell, but a blast of pure forgetfulness. Hermione cried out and fell to one knee, her memories spiraling around her in flickers. First your charms, the old ball, Ron's laugh, Helena's birth. No! Helena screamed, raising her wand. She wasn't a fighter like Harry. She wasn't a strategist like her mother. But she was memory, and memory remembers pain. She reached out and grabbed the suspended flame, the final memory. It scorched her hand, burned her mind with images she couldn't make sense of, stars falling from the sky, a serpent made of ink, a Loan weeping at the foot of a broken tower. But with it came understanding. Helena turned to the girl. You're not a person, she said. You're a warning, a manifestation of what happens when power becomes obsession. Loan didn't just seal the Shaded One. She sealed what he left behind, the temptation, the hunger. The girl's smile faltered. No, you're not real. Helena thrust the memory flame into the prism. A blinding light exploded outward. The chamber roared. The girl shrieked, not in rage but in relief, and faded into dust. And just like that, the Shaded One's tether was gone. When they returned, the pensive went still. Hermione opened her eyes first, blinking back tears. You did it. Helena nodded slowly, her hand still marked from the flame. It's over. Kaido rushed forward, hugging her tightly, and for once she didn't pull away. From across the room, the portraits of past headmasters stirred. The castle sighed in its stones. Hogwarts had remembered. But one final chapter remained, not of battles or memory, but of legacy. And the question of who Helena Granger would choose to become. The sun rose over the black lake with golden serenity, its reflection unmarred by shadow for the first time in weeks. The forbidden forest, still and quiet, gave no sign of the turmoil it had recently concealed. Inside the walls of Hogwarts, the tension that had gripped the castle had finally eased, as if the very stones had exhaled. Helena stood at the top of the astronomy tower, the morning wind tugging at her robes. She watched the horizon as if expecting someone or something to rise with the sun. She no longer carried the diadem. After sealing the final memory within the prism, it had dissolved into light and scattered, becoming one with the runes Loan had carved into Hogwarts long ago. Her hand, still faintly scarred from touching the final flame, flexed absently. The pain had dulled, but the weight of what she had seen lingered. Kaido climbed the final steps and joined her in the silence. You've been up here since dawn. I couldn't sleep, Helena said softly. He leaned against the railing. Neither could I. She turned to him. Is it really gone? All of it. The Shaded One is sealed again. The last memory burned through his tether. Whatever piece of him escaped into that girl, it's gone. You made sure of that. I didn't do it alone. Kaido smiled faintly. No, but you were the only one who could. Helena fell quiet again, staring into the distance. The prophecy was right. The child of 2 times me. Born of a war and raised in peace. I was never meant to fight with spells. I was meant to remember. And that was what saved us. She shook her head. No. What saved us was everyone choosing to help instead of control. Corwin guiding us. Binns, giving up what was left of him. Mum, refusing to let me face it alone. Even you, stubborn as you are. Kaido chuckled. Guilty as charged. They sat in the quiet for a moment longer, until a soft chime rang behind them. The headmistress's phoenix-shaped Patronus hovered near the tower door. Helena Granger. Your presence is requested in the Great Hall. Helena sighed. Right. The celebration. Kaido smirked. You'd rather skip it and sneak back into the forest, wouldn't you? Absolutely. But she stood, brushing off her robes. Let's get this over with. The Great Hall had never looked so bright. Golden banners now hung alongside those of the 4 houses, each embroidered with the runes of Loan thorn, a symbol of unity, of the hidden past brought back into light. Students filled every table, chattering excitedly. At the staff table, Professors McGonagall, Longbottom, and Vector shared a rare moment of easy conversation. Hermione stood near the steps to the dais, waiting. Helena met her mother's eyes as she approached. There were things they still hadn't said, about the danger, the choices, the secrets they both kept. But today they didn't need to. Hermione pulled her into a tight hug. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "I know," Helena said softly. Professor McGonagall stood and tapped her glass. The hall quieted. Before this term began, none of us could have anticipated what lay beneath our feet, or what it would demand of us to keep it buried. Helena Granger has not only preserved the truth of Hogwarts' origin, but ensured its protection for generations to come. Today, we recognize her not with titles or trophies, but with a new tradition. She turned to Helena. "You reminded us that memory is magic. And so the school shall now observe Alohan's Day, not as a day of fear, but of remembrance. A day where we honor the memories that built this place and those who carry them forward." The students broke into applause. Helena flushed with quiet pride. Kaido gave her a dramatic bow from the Ravenclaw table, and even-head girl Li Mei, once skeptical of Helena's instincts, offered a sincere smile. After the noise faded, Helena stepped forward. "I never wanted to be the center of attention," she began. "But I've learned that sometimes when magic calls you, you don't get to choose how loud it is." She glanced around the room. "I also learned that memory isn't just about the past. It's about the choice to carry forward what matters, and to let go of what doesn't." Her eyes settled on the younger students. Never be afraid to remember. And never be afraid to change because of it. She stepped down. The room didn't cheer again, not out of disrespect, but because they were genuinely thinking. And that meant more to her than applause ever could. That night, Helena found herself back in the room of requirement. The pensive sat still and calm, its silvery surface smooth. She wasn't there for answers. She was there to leave one. Drawing her wand, she pulled a single memory from her mind. Her vision inside the memory chamber, when she had held the final flame and understood the truth. She placed it into the basin. Corwin flickered to life beside her. "Leaving behind your own mystery?" "No," Helena said. "Just a guidepost. For the next person who asks questions that others are too afraid to answer." Corwin tilted his head. "You've grown, Helena Granger." "So have you." He smiled, then began to fade. "My duty's done now. The forest sleeps. The echo's quiet, and the source is sealed again. Until the next remembering." She watched him vanish, then turned toward the door. Outside, Kaido was waiting. "You ready to go?" he asked. Helena nodded. "Where?" He shrugged. "Anywhere." She smiled. "Good answer." And together they walked down the corridor, not toward a future already written, but one full of blank pages. Pages Helena Granger was finally ready to write.